So we have a translation in the back. Do they have a Bhagavad Gita in Croatian?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 16. Text number, on purport then. Text, I'm just going to read text number 9 because it's a shorter purport. Happy topic. This is called Divine and Demoniac Natures. Something that we might be familiar with. It's always good to hear something familiar. So this is text number 9. Etam drishtim avashtabhya nashtatmano na buddhaya pravanyuga karmana shaya jagato hita. Following such conclusions, the demoniac who are lost to themselves and have no intelligence engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. I said it was going to be a happy topic. Purport. The demoniac are engaged in activities that will lead the world to destruction. Does it sound familiar? The Lord states here that they are less intelligent. The materialists who have no concept of God think that they are advancing, but according to Bhagavad Gita, they are unintelligent and devoid of all sense. They try to enjoy the material world to the utmost limit, and therefore always engage in inventing something for sense gratification. Such materialistic inventions are considered to be advancement of human civilization, but the result is that people grow more and more violent and more cruel to animals and cruel to other human beings. They have no idea how to behave toward one another. Animal killing is very prominent amongst demoniac people. Know any demons? Know anyone who kills animals? Such people are considered the enemies of the world, because ultimately they will invent or create something which will bring about destruction to all. Indirectly, this verse anticipates the invention of nuclear weapons, of which the whole world is today very proud. At any moment, war may take place, and these atomic weapons may create havoc. Such things are created solely for the destruction of the world, and this is indicated here. Due to the godlessness, such weapons are invented in human society. They are not meant for the peace and prosperity of the world. Etam drishtim avashtabhya nashtatmano na buddhaya pravanyuga karmana shaye jagato hita. Following such conclusions, the demoniac who are lost to themselves and have no intelligence engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane. In the previous verse, Lord Krishna said, Asatyam apratishtam te jagadohoranishwaram aparashparam sambhutyam kemaya kamahaitukam. They say that this world is unreal, it has no foundation, it has no God in control, it produces sex desire and has no cause in the lust. And now this verse follows, following such conclusions and lost to themselves, the demoniac create horrible, unbeneficial works which are meant to destroy the world. Most of us, if not all of us, we've been brought up in illusion, beginning with the fact that 99.99% of our parents were completely in the Bali concept of life. And I doubt whether any of our parents performed Garbhadam Samskar before our appearance. As a matter of fact, for most of us, the stalk may well brought us, for all that it's worth, all the planning that went into it. So, with such a background, in the material concept of life, that's the first illusion, and after that, it's simply one illusion built upon another. I remember before I became a devotee, I was a vegetarian, going to a university. Because I didn't know how to cook. I knew how to cook. I cooked even when I was like 5 years old. But I wasn't familiar with vegetarian cooking. And I was living in Buffalo, New York, where the average temperature in the winter was minus 20 or 30 below, with 3 meters of snow sometimes. And since I didn't know what to cook, I was living on bananas and raisins for around 3 or 4 months, till I switched over to microbiotic diet, which meant brown rice and carrots. One of the reasons why I joined the Hare Krishna movement, just so I could eat something. So, the training that we had, what we brought up, was not exactly Brahminical. And what to speak, when I was a vegetarian in school, most of the people I knew, even this is during the beginning of the hippie movement, I guess kind of beginning, they couldn't believe I was a vegetarian. They thought, that was how many months have you been a vegetarian? Oh, don't worry about it. It's just a passing thing. Soon you'll get back to normal again. So, most of it have been brought up with the whole conception. Of course, you're in Croatia. Croatia has its history, and probably in the history, Croatians are always the heroes. One time I went to the parliament of Slovenia to be shown around. So they showed us the murals on the wall of the history of Slovenia. How Slovenia was humbly, people were tilling the ground, and then some big force came and smashed them. And they had a revolution against the big force, and they got smashed again. And then another country came and smashed them. And a little while later, they had another revolution, and they got smashed. And then another country came and rolled over Slovenia again. It's called, I guess, ghastly rasa. The rasa, but they're proud of the history. They have a whole mural with all the times they got smashed. It's kind of like Poland, In just a few years, one country comes, rolls it over. Another country comes back the other way and rolls it over. It's almost like flattening a chapati before you cook it. So I'm sure Croatia has its history also, like America has its history, which is more or less like a fairy tale. And then you find out the real history behind the history, and the real history behind the real history. And ultimately it gets down to the same thing. People are just demons. They're just exploiting each other and making up a fairy tale about why they did it. So they always want whoever wins the fight becomes the hero. It's just a fairy tale, but people actually believe it. They don't believe in God. They only believe in the different material concepts that they require, called upadis. They're different designation. I'm a good person because I'm a Croatian. Just because I'm a Croatian, I'm a good person. Amongst the good people, I may be bad, but because I'm a Croatian, or an American, or a Slovenian, or whatever, I'm a good person just by being part of that country. I may not be a big country like America, but I'm small and beautiful. I may not be a big dog, but I'm a very nice little dog. Prabhupada gave the example, they go to the United Nations and they talk, but they don't exactly talk, they bark, like dogs. Rawr, I'm a big dog, or I'm an American, Rrr, I'm going to bite you. And the Russian goes, I'm also a big dog, I can bite too. Rrr. And Slovenia goes, beep, beep, I'm a little dog. I like both of you, don't bite me, please. But ultimately they're all growling.
We have Slovenians here.
What's that?
We have Slovenians here.
I know, I can. I'm a permanent resident there. I'm almost like a Slovenian. So I'm a big dog and a little dog at the same time. And I come to Croatia too. A little bit bigger, nice dog. But Prabhupada said they keep themselves in the doggish concept of life. That this is mine, don't touch it, her. Because dogs, what they do is they go around, they lift their leg up and they mark their boundaries. And any dog that comes, rah, get out of here, it's my territory, I'll bite her. And this is my other guy, he has half of it, we bite together. Flee. So if human beings are in the bodily concept of life, the doggish conception of life, then what can they actually accomplish? Now human life is meant to be civilized, that human beings have intelligence to get out of this kind of barbaric mentality. But why don't they do it? What is the problem? What has happened in Kali Yuga? So, as we know in the history of Kali Yuga, Pariksha Maharaj, he was journeying and he came across, he was trying to find out what was happening in his kingdom. So he was going around his kingdom and he came across a Shudra, a low-class man, beating on a cow and a bull. Now the sages of Naimisharanya, when they heard this, they couldn't even believe that anyone would ever beat on a cow and bull. It's like nowadays, in America they have this, they had what you call the NIAH, the National Institute for Allergy something, contagious diseases. His name is Fauci. You've heard of Fauci?
Anthony.
What's that? Anthony Fauci, yes. So he was the one who's conducting the pandemic in America. He was the one who was accused of funding the research in the Wuhan virology department that created the SARS virus too. And there was a big uproar about that, it's still going on, and people, then they found out that to do the research on these vaccines, they had to take children in the womb out alive and take out their organs, dissect them when they were alive. And people thought that was bad. At least we're not that degraded. Some people thought it was bad, at least, to do that. But then they found out he was doing research with beagles, that he was doing experiments with little pet puppies. And then there was a big uproar. He's actually hurting a dog. Killing children was, one thing, that wasn't good, but killing dogs, well, that was too much. That was over the top. Now, if he did it with a cow or a bull, it would be completely normal. He probably would have gotten the honor, what do they call the Nobel Prize for doing it. But Pariksha Maharaj saw a Shudra beating on a cow and a bull, and he was about to kill the Shudra for doing that until he surrendered. The sages in Namashranya, they were shocked that anyone would do that. But it wasn't just out of sentiment they were shocked, because even 5,000 years ago, the whole economy of the society was based on the cow and bull. And as we know, people are very much interested in their economy. Just like they want people to take this current vaccine, many people are reluctant to do it, so they threaten them, unless you take the vaccine, then we're going to fire you in order to get obedience. So people, in order to maintain themselves, their livelihood, they'll practically do anything. So 5,000 years ago, when the cow and the bull were the basis of the economy and society, then the sages were shocked. How can anyone beat on a cow and a bull? It's like cutting the floor underneath yourself. But then again, that's what Kali Yuga is, the advancement of animal killing. That's all Kali Yuga actually is killing animals and eventually human beings. Others are doing that already. They're aborting babies, but eventually at the end of Kali Yuga, that will be the only food left. And the whole idea, even of abortion, is that it's too economically difficult to take care of children, so that they don't have to suffer. The children, of course, we kill them. And that's the whole idea of euthanasia also. In order to prevent you from suffering, we kill you. We don't want you to suffer, we're so kind, so we cut your throat. Ultimately, we just don't want to be bothered with these people. We don't want to be bothered taking care of people because we want to enjoy. And they're a botheration. And besides that, if you see someone suffering, then it may remind you that you might have to suffer in the future. And we don't want that reminder because that will take away from our enjoyment. So you're interfering with my enjoyment, you're actually a menace. You're my enemy because you don't allow me to enjoy. So in order to help you, to purify you, to prevent you from committing an offense by putting me in anxiety about enjoying, therefore the only thing I can do to save you from the offense is to kill you. Now the cow, as Prabhupada, or as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the cow is our mother and the bull is our father. Now, we're so divorced from reality, in modern society, it sounds rather strange. How can the cow be my mother? Or how can the bull be my father? My father didn't look exactly like a bull. My mother wasn't exactly like a cow. She didn't eat grass, at least. So the Qazi was a little, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking to the Qazi, he was a little surprised. Well, what do you mean the cow is our mother? And because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told the Qazi, why is it that in your religion, you're killing your mother and father? So the Qazi said, we're not killing our mother and father, what are you talking about? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that the mother is like, the cow is like your mother because she gives you milk and nourishes you even when you're a baby. And the bull works for you by cultivating the land and growing grains. And therefore he's like your father. Maybe he's working more than your father. But you're cutting, out of gratitude to your father and mother, you're cutting their throat and eating them. That's barbaric. Like in Africa, Prabhupada sometimes would mention that there is a tribe in Africa and they have a big feast celebrating their grandfather. When the grandfather gets old, they have a big feast celebrating him and he's the menu. What they do is they take him when he gets old enough, then they take him to the roof and they roll him off the roof. I couldn't make this up. And then if he doesn't die, they bring him up, show him the roof again, then roll him off, till finally he dies. And then they have a feast in the honor of the grandfather, and the main preparation is his brains. Because the idea is that grandfather is very old and wise, therefore his brains are very valuable. So if we eat them, we'll also get wise. Anyone interested in grandfather feast? So this is barbaric. At least we think it's barbaric. Hopefully we think it's barbaric. So the sages were shocked that anyone could do that to a cow or a bull. And people used to be shocked when they used to talk about abortion or killing children. But even that's not so much, and it doesn't invoke so much emotion and horror and shock as it used to, because people get accustomed to it. So, because they're killing the cows and the bull, what to do? Because Krishna Bhagavad Gita says, Anad bhavati bhutani parjana anasambhava. All living entities subsist on food grains. And grains come from the production of rain. And rain comes from sacrifice. And sacrifice is born of man's prescribed duty. So the Vaishya class, which is somewhat civilized class of people in society, their job was to protect the cow and the bull and produce food, because that's the basic principle of survival. And as we all know, people's first priority in this material world is to survive. The whole material world is a place where everyone is just trying to survive, although everyone dies. Sorry for the bad news. We'll try and say something more optimistic. But that's basically it. The food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, the clothing we put on, the buildings we live in, they're all attempts of survival. Even when we get married and have children, it's not necessarily just out of pure love. It's also an attempt of survival. The children will grow up, and hopefully they'll help us survive when we get old and incapacitated. And our husband and wife will cooperate in order to maintain the body, the house, the economic development, the cooking, and everything else. So mutually we cooperate in order to live together and survive, to live as long as possible, and maybe hopefully with nice relationships, although relationships are mostly based upon helping each other survive, and bad relationships are those who are trying to decrease our survival. So because they've eliminated the cow and the bull as active participants in our economic development, therefore there has to be some other way of getting food grains. They're not performing sacrifice. No one ever thought of that. That went out with the Red Indians. In America, used to do at least some dance to get some rain. But now the only thing they do is seed the clouds to get rain sometimes and create floods. So there's no sacrifice. So the sacrifice is, there is sacrifice of human values in order to technologically, industrially advance. So instead of tilling the ground with the bull, they've invented the tractor. Even they eat the horses nowadays. They don't even bother with the horses. Anyone who's using a horse to cultivate the land is considered to be primitive. What to speak of a bull? And then the tractors, in order to have a tractor, you need industry. You have to have a factory to produce the tractor. And in order to produce the tractor in the industry, you need oil. In order to get the oil, you have to build boats. In order to build boats, you have to have other factories, shipyards. And in order to protect all this, you need armies. It's exactly like that story that I always tell all the time. So if you heard it, you can sleep for a couple of minutes. That the Brahmin was on the bank, a very saintly Brahmin. He was so saintly, he was always chanting Hare Krishna, but all he had was a pair of underwear. Because he didn't work, he was unemployed. And he was also homeless. But he was happy chanting Hare Krishna, and he would always take his bath on the bank of the Ganges. And one day he was washing his underwear and put it on the bank of the Ganges to dry, and then a mouse came and stole his underwear. So he was very embarrassed, didn't know what to do, called 911. They brought him another pair of underwear, talked to a psychiatrist, said, the best thing to take care of mice is a cat. So he begged a cat. And the cat came and guarded his underwear. So all his problems were solved, except at night when he tried to sleep, the cat started to go, meow, meow. So he called up an interpreter, asked what the cat was saying, meow, meow. He said, oh, he wants some milk. Got some good advice, found out milk comes from a cow. So he begged a cow, and life was good, except he didn't know how to milk a cow. So he got a wife. The wife was very good at milking cows, so the cat got milk, and his underwear was safe. Unfortunately, the wife wasn't satisfied simply milking cows. So she wanted some children. So in order to protect his underwear, he'd do anything. Even he got some children. Unfortunately, they weren't satisfied living with him on the bank of the Ganges. So he had to get a house. But to pay for the house, he had to get a job. But he felt secure. His underwear felt really safe now. But in order to take care of to go to the job, he had to get a car. But in order to pay for the car, he had to work at night. So now he had two jobs, day and night. He had a house, a wife, and two children, a cow and a cat, and a car, all to protect his underwear. So with little calculation, he figured, the next step, I'm not going to be able to survive. My underwear won't survive. So the best thing to do is to take it off and walk away. So that's what he did. He took his underwear off and he renounced everything and walked away. And all his problems were solved. So that's modern society. They started out by eliminating the cow and the bull because Shringi cursed Pariksha Maharaj, who was supposed to maintain religious principles, and therefore, because of the degradation of the Brahminical class and the elimination of the Kshatriya class, the only thing left was the Vaishyas. And without the direction of the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, they simply wanted to get more and more economic development, unrestrictedly, because Dharma was killed and it was eliminated. And so when they eliminated the religiosity in the form of the cow and the bull, therefore they still had to eat, And all these different complications came out of that. The dream that we can actually live and survive without the cow and bull, just by technological, economic advancement, industrial advancement. So that's what we have in modern society nowadays. Simply endless complications in order to basically just get something to eat. But it doesn't stop there, because it doesn't work. As Prithu Maharaj, he was born out of one king named Vena. And Vena was also a demoniac king. He eliminated the Brahmins from performing sacrifice also. And so the Brahmins cursed him to die, and indeed, by their sound of their voice, they killed him. But then the rogues and the thieves took over the planet, and so the Brahmins had to get a genuine Kshatriya, an administrator, a protector of the people, and they turned Vena's legs, and for him came Prithu and his wife. So Prithu found out that because Vena was a demon, the king was a demon, and because the people had become demoniac also, therefore the earth was not giving food grains anymore. So Prithu Maharaj chased the earth in the form of a cow, who had assumed the form of a cow, and threatened the cow that it was going to kill the cow. It was going to actually kill the cow, because unless she actually gave food grains to feed the people. But the cow said, well, why should I give food grains? Mother Earth said, why should I give food grains? Why should I feed the demons? They're just creating problems and trouble. Why should I bother feeding them? Just like Prabhupada gives the example, why should you give a snake bananas and milk? You're just going to increase their poison, and when they do so, when they bite you, it's going to even be more deadly. But Prithu Maharaj was a saintly king, and he promised that the earth would become pious, and therefore the earth agreed to bring forth grains. But where are those saintly kings now to protect the earth? And therefore the earth gradually, what they call climate change, or whatever you want to call it, is going to restrict the food grains, one way or the other. And therefore there's a class of people who think there are too many people on the planet, so why just kill cows and bulls? We're killing our children because they're a nuisance. Why not kill the rest of the people? They're also a nuisance. Why do we have so many people on this planet, as they call them, useless eaters? Because they don't know how to maintain properly, because the basic principle of piety, of satisfaction, of sacrifice to God, to Vishnu, Krishna, is protecting the cow and the bull economically. Let the cow and bull till the land, live simply, and be grateful to God in some way or another, chant the holy names of God, serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, instead of doing sinful activities, especially killing the cow and the bull and other animals, and eating your children, having your consciousness covered over so you can't even understand that you're not this body. Like when Prabhupada went to Russia and spoke to Professor Katowski, the head of the Indology, the study of Hinduism in the Moscow University, Prabhupada tried to explain to him, what's the difference between your body and the soul? That even a 3-year-old child or a 5-year-old child could understand it, that the body's changing, but we're not changing. But Professor Katowski, the head of the Indology department of all of Russia, the main university in Russia, couldn't understand that your body's changing, but you're not changing, therefore you're not your body. Prabhupada kept on saying 1 + 1 was 2, and Professor Katowski was insisting that's wrong, it's 3. So after some time, Prabhupada gave up and started to talk about how human society should create first-class men, people who are truthful, they're clean, etc. And Professor Kutaski completely refused to accept such a premise, that we're all supposed to be the lowest class of men, except for a few people like us. Or they have a book called Animal Farm, where all the animals get together and they make a government. And the principle of the government is that all the animals are equal, except for the pigs. Because the pigs are the head of the government, and therefore all the animals are equal, but some animals more equal than the others. So in modern society, as people become degraded more and more, then the attempts for so-called economic development are simply killing everyone. If we kill animals, if we kill each other, because that's what it comes down to, killing each other, killing our children, killing our parents, then there's no limit to the demoniac mentality, the sinful reactions, and how much people's consciousness becomes covered over. Therefore, as Prabhupada said, they polluted the air, they polluted the water, they polluted the food, they polluted the ether, and therefore there must be war. And it's simply Kali Yuga is just rolling on. And we have to wake up and realize it's not going the right direction. It's not, as people go on with modern society, as it becomes more and more sinful, then it becomes more and more difficult for people in general to understand that they're not their body, what real economy is, what piety is, what's the difference between sin and piety. They can't understand the existence of God, they can't understand karma, the laws of nature, they can't understand anything of any value. All they know is how to play video games, kill things on the screen. And when they get a little to relax, see a little pornography or something like that, and then go back to kill things. And this is called civilization. So we have to understand we're also living in society, and generally speaking, our economics are also based upon the same demoniac system, which is based upon animal killing, all killing of all kinds of things, which is only going to lead to destruction. You don't have to be an atomic physicist to figure out where society is going. They're not even shy about it. They're saying in the future, after they get rid of most of the people, then there'll be a big reset. They're going to reset everything. And as they say, at least one of them said that you won't own anything, and you'll be happy. There'll be a few people that own everything, which is probably what's going on anyhow now. People have the illusion that they're in control. They actually believe that they have a voice. They may have a voice, but the people who actually count don't listen to them. And they'll be happy. But yes, they'll be happy. You won't own anything, and you won't have any brains left. They'll make sure you have no brains, and that way you'll be happy, because you won't know what's going on. So that's the plan, and that's the way Kali Yuga is heading. Now the question is whether we have some understanding of what real economic development is, and at least work, even if we can't immediately give up our jobs or our occupations or stop living in society, but at least we should have some idea of where it's heading, where the educational system is heading. And if you want to find out, to just read the newspapers what the educational system is in America. It's called critical race theory. You know what that means? Have you heard of that? Critical race theory? Critical race theory means if you're white, you're bad. You were born white, you automatically are bad. Because your ancestors exploited the black people in America, and therefore by birth you're sinful. And you should spend the rest of your life repenting. And the other thing is the gender fluidity. Now they're teaching in the school books for 6 years old, 10-year-old, they have what's called gender fluidity. They have books in the library for the children, which would be considered the worst pornography previously, even for adults. Simply with pictures of homosexual relationships between men and boys. Graphic pictures. And this is what's in the library of the children in the public schools. And when the parents protested, they went to the school boards to protest, then what happened is that the head of the country declared that they were terrorists, the parents were terrorists, for telling the school boards, protesting against this pornography in the schools. So, this is just a little preview. Can't happen here. We're civilized and they're barbaric. But America, that's the Acharya. That's the world Acharya. They gave us Disneyland. They gave us Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Coca-Cola. Oh, Coca-Cola. Oh, couldn't be that bad. These are our heroes. All the movies, how many movies they make in Croatia that they get the Academy Award. They gave us Avatar. So if it's happening there, happening in Australia, why won't it happen here too? Just a question of time. We're all under the modes of nature in Kali Yuga, and they're not exactly goodness. So the question is, if we're actually going to become serious, and I may try to make a little step in the right direction, maybe someone's interested in protecting cows or bulls or tilling the land, and maybe we can't give up our occupation, our job, but at least we can donate or try to inspire devotees to do things like that. Maybe even think about creating a gurukul so our children don't have to be taught that we're all bad because we're white or black or red or whatever, and that love should be between everyone. Everyone should love each other in a very gross way. I remember 20 years ago I was in Finland, and they showed me a newspaper article from Sweden. And in the article said, we've broken the last barrier in our society, the last obstacle. And they said, this is the first time a father ever married his son. So the barrier has been broken, and now we can progress beyond that. So I'm not making it up. This is reality. And Kali Yuga is not slowing down just because we're having some, chanting once in a while. We go out in the street and we chant Hare Krishna. And I think someone said today when we had our meeting, people that were asked on the street, what do you think of the Hare Krishnas? Oh, those crazy people beating on the drum all the time. So it looks like we haven't gotten our message quite across yet. But we have to get our message across, because Kali Yuga is going so fast that we'll wake up one day, and we'll be very surprised of what actually is going on. And the people are running the society, although we may try to appease them, try to become, honest, well, not honest, respectable citizens, we dress like everyone else, We speak like everyone else. We smell like everyone else. And they love us for it. No, everyone else is going to become a victim, and we're going to be with everyone else as a victim too, so-called victim. Because we're all involved in the same society. So if we don't turn society around, then they're going to turn us around. And therefore we should seriously consider that what can I do personally to improve my sadhana? What can I do to actually try to bring my own life economically in line with reality, with something that's actually going to be auspicious for me and my children and the future generations, and not simply go on following the standard economic system, the standard social system, just so we become so-called respectable. They say, extend our hands and clap them, and we do it just so that people love us. They don't love each other, why will they love us for doing it? And even if some people think we're crazy for actually becoming Krishna conscious and actually establishing a real social economic system, of which many other groups are actually doing way beyond what we're doing. They've already figured out way beyond us. Self-sufficiency, community living. They don't know about Krishna, they don't know about the absolute truth, they may not even know about karma and reincarnation, but at least they have their feet on the ground. They're not living in some imaginary Vaikuntha. They actually know where they are. So we should consider that and maybe think about how we can actually create something what Prabhupada wanted, Gurukuls, where our children actually learn about the real subject matters that are in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. The first time I went to India, 1974, that I was in Vrindavan, and so I saw some Gurukul children, students, in Govardhan Hill, and I asked them what they were studying, and they showed me their book. It was the Bhagavad Gita. That's what they were learning in school, was the Bhagavad Gita. They don't learn that anymore in India, and they certainly don't learn it here. What do they learn? When I went to school, we learned math, science, whatever. I think we even dissected one frog. And that was the worst thing that happened to us. But nowadays, I don't even think we can imagine what's going on. In America, it's like the Acharya. We won't even mention all the things that are happening, because I don't even know what they are, and probably shouldn't know. Anyhow, again, I think we have to consider that we only have so much time. Kali Yuga is not waiting for us to wake up. And unless we consider things carefully and try to change our direction a little bit towards actually establishing what Prabhupada gave us, farm communities, Gurukul, actually real preaching strategies to convince people that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And not that we have to change our lives completely, we have to actually understand what our priorities are. And then do something which will be practical and effective. So I'll stop there, thank you. Any questions or comments? I remember when I first went to New Vrindavan, 1969, and New Vrindavan was a little tiny building at that time in America, and Prabhupada was staying there, so I went there with some other devotees to visit him. And I met the first sannyasi there. His name was Kirtananda Maharaj at the time. And he told me, Prabhupada said, to solve our economic problem, all we need is a little land and a cow. So we have to think about that. New Vrindavan, there was a place called Gitanagari, and it was a nice farm, still is a nice farm, but they had decided that Prabhupada said all we do is have to protect the cows, and all our economic problems would be solved. So they decided to base their community on cow protection. So they got up to 300 cows giving milk. I don't know if all of them gave milk. They got up to 300 cows in order to protect the cows and maintain their economics. But their economics was that everyone in the community had a car. They all had their own video cameras. They all had their own TV sets. They all went to India once a year. And the poor cows had a supply for these necessities. They couldn't do it. I guess they thought they were impious cows or something. They could only give, 40 liters of milk, and they had to give 300 to supply for their necessities. So then they just gave up the idea. Oh, Prabhupada was wrong. You can't, cow protection will not give us our necessities. We couldn't get a new car every year. This is a necessity. So it didn't work. So without becoming Krishna conscious, without becoming satisfied with the process of meditating on Krishna and with love and devotion and serving Him and becoming satisfied that way, we can't give up our whimsical nature of accumulating more and more material things, technological and other, then of course cow protection and things like that will consider to be primitive. And we know with all the professors of economics and everything else, they'll solve the problem. They'll print up more money. They'll just print it up or type it into a computer, the money will appear, and the food grains will come. The demigods will just throw down all their blessings because they also have a price. If they get paid off with all this paper money, they can't refuse. But that's just a dream. At the end, you can eat your paper money or burn it for heat. That's if it's not plastic. But if the demigods don't supply the rain, if there's no more food grains, if there's no more sacrifice, there's just printing of money, then we'll wind up like the Germans did after World War II. They printed so much money that in order to get a loaf of bread, they needed a wheelbarrow to bring the money to the store. A wheelbarrow full of money. And then they go in because there's so much money to buy the loaf of bread that they needed. They couldn't make it in one trip. So they had to their family would have to bring the money in. And when they came back, they found out that the money was on the floor and people stole the wheelbarrow. Because they figure the money is useless, but the wheelbarrow has some practical use. So one day we'll get to that stage too. You'll have to guard your wheelbarrow. It's bringing the money to get the loaf of bread. Anything else? Any questions or comments?
I have.
Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. You speak a lot about cow protection, but in our society we have many vegan. What do you think about this phenomenon?
Vegans. Vegans.
They don't. I think they don't understand the relationship between Krishna and cow.
Yeah, because Krishna's hidden it pretty much, Sometimes the cows sneak into the picture. When Krishna is there with Balaram and they're not looking, the cows would kind of sneak in, try to get into the picture. Yeah, those cows are pretty tricky. Yeah, Krishna just happens, his father has 900,000 cows. Where they came from, no one knows. Somehow they snuck into his farm. And Krishna just, because there's nothing else to do, he herds them all day. Yeah, it's really hard to figure out what the relationship between Krishna and the cows are. It's pretty hidden in the Vedas. Namo Brahmanya Hitaya, Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha, Jagad Hitaya Krishna, Govindaya, Namo Namaha. Krishna is known as Govindaya, one who protects the cows, loves the cows, and the Brahmins. So, this is the basis of civilization, the basis of the spiritual world. Not the basis, but it's one of the important factors in the spiritual world. If our path is bhakti, and the only food that's available given out of love is milk, and the animal who's giving the food out of love, we kill it, what is our consciousness? And when it gives the milk, we reject it. Because it's bad. The cow is bad, it gives bad things like milk. And then we say, well, we don't want to harm the cows, as if we don't protect the cows, but we don't want to harm them, by taking their milk. The cow gets tortured because we're taking milk. Actually, if we offer the milk to Krishna, then the cow gets benefited. There's nothing else we're doing to benefit cows except for offering the milk to Krishna, engaging them in devotional service. But it just so happens people have their sentiment, one way or another. But that's what it is, it's sentiment. Because whether we're taking milk or not, it makes no difference. They're still killing the cows. And we're still involved in this society where practically everything is based upon cow slaughter. The production of tractors, the technology, the oil, the products of oil, the very things we're wearing, coming from the technological advancement from getting oil, which is based upon building factories and transportation, which is all based upon cow slaughter. So we may imagine we're good people because we don't drink milk, but unless we change society, the economic basis, and actually provide real food without tractors and without economic development, without having to pollute the air, the water, the food, people's consciousness, then we're not really protecting cows at all. We're not doing the cows any good just by not drinking their milk. Yes?
But in order to produce food without tractors and technology, we need a lot of working power. That means that most of the people will have to work on agriculture. But civilization progressed too much, that there is no way back. People just don't want to go back to the villages and work on the field.
Yeah, so they'll starve, no problem. The only people left are the people who want to work. And they'll produce children, they'll want to work too, so they can eat. And we'll get back to civilization again. And the other people, when they leave their bodies, good luck. They'll go to a place where there are only factories. So it's inevitable. We may not like it, but we have a choice. Just to survive, whether we're willing to do what's necessary to get food, because milk doesn't come from a carton in the store. And if we don't want to till the earth, we want to imagine that we can go on producing unlimited food grains in this demoniac way, you're wrong. This is the cutting point. You're sinful, therefore the climate change, the demigods are unpleased. You're sinful, therefore you're throwing chemicals into the earth and poisoning it. The earth is not going to cooperate and give you proper food grains. You're doing so many demoniac things that modify the food, and it's just getting worse and worse. Your demoniac brains don't produce anything superior to what Krishna has produced. So there's a point of reckoning, and I think we're in the midst of it. Guess what? The golden age is not coming through technology. All right. Hwala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.